let's jump into our movie reviews this week of the stuff that came out this week. So Seth was the only one who was able to see The Boy and the Heron. He actually saw it a while ago was that at the London Film Festival? Is that where it was?
It was.
Yeah. And did you see the subtitled or dubbed version?
Subtitles.
Subtitled version.
So this was
So
before that it had even been like announced the cast for.
Yeah, let me pull up the synopsis quick, and then I'll turn it over to you because I'm excited to see it. I was not able to get out to the theater. So the synopsis of The Boy and the Heron is the latest from Hayao Miyazaki after a little hiatus. And at one point, we were all talking about that this was going to be his last film ever. He's kind of walked that back, and it sounds like he's been making another one, or at least one more. But The Boy and the Heron, while the Second World War rages, the teenage Mahito, haunted by his mother's tragic death, is relocated from Tokyo to the serene rural home of his new stepmother, Natsuko, a woman who bears a striking resemblance to the boy's mother. As he tries to adjust, this strange new world grows even stranger following the appearance of a persistent gray heron who perplexes and bedevils Mahito, dubbing him the long-awaited one. So Seth, let's hear it.
Yeah, so I think I've seen almost all of Miyazaki's films. I think I'm missing one. So I kind of went into this having a lot of experience in, hitting his work. I watched this back in, I think it was like the 20th of October. So it's been a bit of time, like 6 weeks or whatever. But it's still like, fresh there. I still remember a lot, everything. It's really interesting. So it's, where do I start? It's not the most. I think The Boy and the Heron succeeds mostly in the introduction of his world and his intricate, strange, and weird world that we have seen many, many times in Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, and showcasing these creative characters and having a new standpoint. Like in Spirited Away, we had No Face, and in this we've got the Heron, which is just a really weird character, honestly, and it's actually surprising to one of probably his funniest film today. I think The Boy and the Heron is a self-reflective piece, like any. It's a film that tells important life stories and tales and lessons in the form of animation, just as any Ghibli does. They always provide some sort of existential crisis, but I think it works as like a comedy as well and a self-reflective piece. This feels as if Boy and the Heron feels as if it was made to be Hayao Miyazaki's final film, which it obviously was, and it feels that way. It feels like a send-off piece, especially with the ending and what it kind of pushes, and it really goes into so many different portals within not only his life story, but commentary on the war, commentary on Japanese culture, whatever. I don't think this is going to be for everyone, to be honest. I think this is one that's for Miyazaki fans like myself, and even I wasn't as high on it as most, which is crazy because I still thought this was great, but it's actually down the lower end of my Miyazaki ranking. Like, I think I've seen 10 Miyazaki films. I think it sits like eighth or seventh, but it's still like a 4-star. This is how much I think of him as a filmmaker, and everyone else is like, I don't have any film from him under 4, which is crazy. But he does, like I said, go into a lot of portals, and there's a lot of entries to the point where it can become convoluted and a bit much, I would say. Definitely one that doesn't much warrant another watch, but kind of requires one because of how much commentary is there. And it's, not his most conventional is the wrong word, but not his most understandable film, logical film. Accessible, that's the word. Yeah. Not his most accessible film. So I would never recommend this to someone who's just jumping into his filmography. I think it's important to get a gist of where he's been in his career. And I also think this is like the film, I'm trying to think of an example, but it showcases all his best work as a filmmaker, all that he's great at in terms of telling this kind of fairy tale life story that offers the funny moments, offers the weird moments, offers the crazy characters like the Heron and like some fucking strange characters that you'll see in the film, but also offers these important life lessons, this culture, the commentary on the war, the commentary on life and death, the commentary on the culture in Japan, especially around that era. The animation is fucking like remarkable as always is, and it looks truly stunning. But yeah, I just don't think it's his most accessible work. It's inventive, definitely not his best for me. Kind of lower down, but still great. It might improve on watch, but I can imagine this to be like not in terms of the film, whatever, but like the reception of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Not that people will think it's bad, but it will like be. I can imagine some diehard Miyazaki's, diehard Tarantino's putting it at the very top, and then some, being like, okay, I liked it, but it's like very much down the bottom for me. That kind of reception, where I think true Miyazaki fans will. There's a lot to take from this. It's all his best elements, but I wouldn't recommend it to someone who hadn't seen many before because it is so unconventional in the route that it takes. But yeah, so 4 out of 5 for me. I think it's very, very, very good. It still sits in my top 10 of the year. I think it's like 7th at this stage. So it's still great, but not as good as some of his others. But that's not really saying much because it's Miyazaki. But yeah, great film. Really, really liked it.
Yeah, and George did give it a 3.5 out of 5. So obviously he's not here, but he was able to see it. I think it was one of those that he gave a 4 and then might have moved down to 3.5 because I feel like I remember.
I think he actually started at 3.5 with this one. I remember.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Because I remember him saying like he kind of similar flavor to what you were saying, just maybe a little lower. Whereas like he really enjoyed it, but not hitting like the other Miyazaki films he's seen. I have heard a lot of people say on Twitter that it's like you said, very not his most accessible film, very dense film, probably merits a rewatch. One thing you mentioned is you would not recommend this to be someone's first Miyazaki. What would you say should be someone's first like Ghibli Miyazaki?
Jesus,
because I've only seen Spirited Away. That's the only one.
Spirited Away is.
I think Spirited Away is like there's a reason Spirited Away transferred over to the Western audience so well, similar to like Howl's Castle, Prince Mononoke. I mean, they all do, but I think Spirited Away is for me his best ever work and his magnum opus. But I think also like a really, really good starting point that isn't like too much and doesn't offer so much commentary, but it's just it's just there and it's chill and it's really lovely. Is Kiki's Delivery Service, I'd probably say is if you've seen Spirited Away, I'd probably say that's the perfect start next point. It's quite simple, but it has his best to offer. The animation is really beautiful and it's like a classic story, and it offers you really soak in the Japanese culture as well. So yeah, Spirited Away or Kiki's Delivery Service, I would say be one of those two I'd usually recommend as a first.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just looking at because I never knew like Studio Ghibli versus Hayao Miyazaki. I know he's like the head of it, but I was wondering how many different people are part of it. Seems like a pretty small group of directors.
I mean, Grave of Fireflies also.
Yeah, Isao Takahata is the director of that one.
Yeah. That's one I'd also recommend because I mean that's kind of different. Grave of Fireflies is like it's not Miyazaki. It's very different. Obviously, the animation style is the same, but that's kind of more on the water and effects and stuff like that. The Wind Rises as well is really good for Miyazaki. That was his last film before The Boy and the Heron, and that's very much a kind of post-war era, during war era. But yeah, I'd probably say those two. Grave of the Fireflies could also be great in terms of Ghibli as well. Like there's a reason those films, Grave of Fireflies and Spirited Away, are so like massively, highly rated here, just because Ghibli like transfers across so well. Whereas some other cultures or some other mediums might struggle to. Ghibli is, it's such a worldwide thing, even though it's really Japanese in its culture. It's such a fucking, like, everyone knows it, everyone loves them. So, yeah, I'd probably say one of those three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I Googled Studio Ghibli. So it looks like it's two guys, Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata, as the directors of all about 30 films total that have been there. But there's two that were directed by Hayao Miyazaki's son, Goro Miyazaki. Yeah. And it's just tough because this table on Wikipedia has the Rotten Tomatoes scores, the far right column. And it's Ghibli. So they're all like 90s and above. And then the first one his son directs is a 38. It's like everything's a 90 and above. And then his son gets one chance at it and just ruins the
it's interesting
Ghibli name.
The one that he's directed, I actually haven't seen. I think he directed two, like From Up on Poppy Hill. Mm-hmm. It's got like a 3.7. 3.7.
Tales from Earthsea is the one that got the bad reviews. And then his second film is the one you just mentioned. And it looks like he learned from things. But yeah. Fun company.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, 2.9. Interesting.
But yeah, did well at the box office though, so he's still winning. But I mean, with the Ghibli name, it's gonna be not too.
It's gonna be hard to live up to your dad, isn't it? When he's
for sure.
He's probably the greatest animated filmmaker of all time. It's gonna be a big stepping stone, really.
Mm-hmm. But how old is Hayao Miyazaki? Because this was gonna be his final film.
I'm going to say
82. So
I thought he was older, honestly.
Hopefully, it doesn't take 10 more years for his next film.
That'd be a risk.
Playing with Seth and Fate a little bit, but excited to get to see one more. It's fun because Ghibli is a world that so many people love it, the movies, and I've only seen one, so it's like it's like when back in the day when you found someone who said they'd never seen Breaking Bad, and it's like, oh, you have such a incredible world you haven't even tasted yet that you're going to fall in love with. And I feel like that's kind of where I'm at with Ghibli, where it's just sitting there as a stash of gold that I just haven't even touched yet. That once I start going through, it'll be a lot of fun.
I'd try watching like at least 3 before The Boy and the Heron.
Okay, good to know.
I think a 3 would be like a good marker to
go. I think Howl's Moving Castle is like usually that, and Spirited Away.
That's my
ones I hear about the most. Yeah, so
I just do. Why don't you just do Howl's Castle and Kiki's Delivery Service?
yeah, and they're usually really quick movies too. So I'm
Howl's
sure.
Castle isn't.
Okay,
That's like
well,
2 hours, I think.
I'll be able to crank it out. I won't be able to get to the theaters like next weekend anyway, so I'll have the whole week to
Yeah,
watch
fair.
these movies. So I think I'll make that a priority.